Didn't play the video. Oh well.
Oh, wait.
There we go.
Hi,
Sorry.
I'm Danny Knightmare, and as you can see, I like cool stuff, and I like cool t-shirts. And that's why today's episode is brought to you by the Etsy shop T-shirts and stuff. And if you got a dark side like myself, I recommend the Dark Ones Closet on Etsy as well. Come on, who doesn't like cool shirts and cool shit? Use the code HORROR13 and save 13% off your order. Would I ever steer you wrong?
About the toilet paper. Alright, so Gory spilled her beer. I said, we're horror addicts and Gory be spilling here because she spilled her beer. That's what the teepee was for, not her bunghole. Alright, anyways, we just saw Something in the Dirt. We watched this about 5:30 a.m. last night, or this morning, I guess, because we woke up early. And
Like you do.
this movie was a trip. I felt like I was still dreaming.
I honestly, I'm like, was that really our movie, or did we just get really high?
I felt high
That's why I
watching
wore this shirt.
I wore a brain scan because the other poster shows all scans of their brains or whatever. It's a very brain scanny type movie in a sense. If you are familiar with Something in the Dirt's directors, Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson, they have a similar library of movies that are trips.
They're very cerebral. So they came out of the gate strong with resolution. What I like about them is they are very like, they will make a great movie on nothing, on no money. And even now, they're doing episodes for Moon Knight, they're doing episodes for Loki, they're working for Marvel. They are still showing their love for independent filmmaking and low budget filmmaking, showing that you can make a movie that is able to resonate with the audience without, spending millions of dollars. So, yeah, Resolution is a trip. A lot of people really liked it. Dan and I were like, wait, what?
There wasn't enough of a payoff for me.
But I will say we enjoyed it more after we saw The Endless.
Yeah.
I think, unpopular opinion, at least my favorite is Spring.
Spring's my favorite too.
I love Spring. It's a true horror love story. It's very Lovecraftian. All of their stuff is very Lovecraftian.
Very interdimensional.
And what's cool is all of their movies, you can see how they fit in the same universe. Endless is almost a direct sequel to Resolution, but you can see how Spring fits into it. And this movie as well fits into this body of their work where you're like, oh, I think I know what's going on here.
Yeah, they're all about paranormal, like, portals to different universes and dimensions and stuff. That, like, almost every movie has something like that in it.
Yeah, but there's so much Lovecraftian stuff where there's different dimensions. There's sometimes tentacles.
Demons.
Lots of things.
Sometimes things don't get you a solid answer. There's only one that we missed, the time traveling.
Synchronetic, I think.
Yeah, we've missed that one. We're gonna have to check that one out.
Yeah, Synchronic. Yeah, I haven't seen that one, which has a great cast, and I will say all of their movies are kind of head scratchers. So these are not movies that you watch because you want to see the blood and the gore. If you want to see a movie that leaves you thinking, going, okay, what were they trying to say? That's this kind of movie. That's all of their movies. That's not to say that they don't have gore. Some of their movies like Spring do show some cool gore.
Yeah.
But mostly they're going for making you think. They want to challenge you mentally. And I'm going to clarify, I actually watched this movie and I was like, I like it, but it doesn't feel like a horror movie. It's not, okay? So, my bad. I assumed because their other films were horror films that this one was too. This is a sci-fi mystery, and it does fit that. It's very sci-fi mystery.
There is danger and death and stuff, so, I mean, you know, it's violent, but not horror, more sci-fi thriller.
Though, I'll take this one.
All right.
So what is it about? You know what? I don't fully know, but I'm going to try and, without spoilers, tackle it as best I can. So this movie was kind of inspired during the pandemic, this idea that people attribute meaning to every little thing. How people, try to connect dots that aren't there, or read into things. So, a lot of people do that when they have a lot of time on their hands, like conspiracy theorists, not saying that there aren't conspiracies, but not everything is a conspiracy. Right. So this starts very simply. We have one guy, Levi, who he's had a rough go of it in life, but he seems like he still believes in the best in people, that he's still trucking. He's still hanging in there, even though this man has no family, no nothing. He's lost everything.
Yeah, recently.
But he still hasn't let it change who he is. He hasn't become one of those people who's dark and morose. Like, he still, is excited and passionate about things. And
he's bartending.
And, and he likes his bartending job. And he has an apartment in L.A., and it's cool, because if you're familiar with L.A., they really show L.A. like it is.
Yeah.
And they show a lot of places that, we even saw when we went down there. And the apartment they use really is Justin Benson's apartment. They actually both have apartments there.
Yeah.
Well, he in the courtyard meets Aaron Moorhead's character.
His neighbor.
Oh, I can't remember his name. John. Because John's the most forgettable name. Sorry if your name's John. Yeah. But he meets John, who's a wedding photographer. And, John offers to give him some furniture. So when he comes to help him with the furniture, John notices when opening the door that this crystal type thing that's like a hollowed out crystal that they're using as an ashtray is floating.
I think we got John and Levi mixed up, though. Like, names-wise.
No, Levi's Justin Benson.
All right. I could have swore Aaron was the guy who just moved in.
No. Picture him with longer hair.
Oh, okay. Huh. All right.
He just looks really different in this movie. Justin Benson's got longer hair, and he has yellow hair and green hair and blue hair.
Green, yeah.
Here's no, it's all good.
All right.
Anyway, so he's helping him move in, and he sees the ashtray floating, and at first he tells Levi, and Levi is like, yeah, okay, dude. And then he sees it too. There's something off about this apartment. Even one of the closets doesn't shut correctly. There's weird heat in it. There's obviously something going on. Yeah. And them being in our time and age, instead of just being like, wow, we saw something miraculous, and leaving it at that, or even just trying to focus on what caused it. maybe some kind of scientific phenomenon.
First, they think it's a ghost.
Their first thought is, let's do YouTube. YouTube sounds hard. Let's make a documentary. How much will Netflix pay? The first thing, not even what Levi necessarily wants, but the first thing John thinks is, how are we going to monetize this miracle?
Right.
In a lot of ways, it shares that similarity with Nope. Yeah. Like, they see something impossible, and their first thought is, how are we going to essentially capture it,
prove it without having people come in and take over, like, because they want to do it on themselves. Like I said, at first I think it's a ghost. Like, is that dangerous? Like, well, nobody's ever been killed by a ghost. I mean, what, doors slam around and stuff? No one gets killed.
And, I will say this movie is less about the phenomenon. So if you're really... None of their movies are story first. Mm-hmm. So you need to know that going into any of their films. The most story first one is Spring, which might be why it's our favorite. But most of their stuff is about an idea. Yeah. And the idea is what they want to sit with you. Not that cool kill, not the story, not that ending. It's the idea. And that's what they want you scratching your head about. They want you thinking about things, and they want you to connect it to your own life. Being really vague here because I don't want to spoil it for you. But jump on in, Danny.
Yeah. They're very dialogue heavy. It's a lot of times their movies are considered like bromancy, almost mummy, not comedy or not buddy comedy, but buddy thriller in a sense, I guess.
You make a really good point there. Even though their movies are very slow paced and dialogue heavy, like you think like a Quentin Tarantino film is good dialogue. Yeah. They are guys who have a very good sense of humor. I think their most dramatic film was probably Endless, and even that has some humor in it.
That's the only other one where they're the main characters.
And they love Lovecraft. All of their movies deal with this like existential, like other dimensions, other creatures. So creative. None of their movies are like, I can't say, oh, it's like this movie over here, because it's not. They have their own brand of Lovecraftian horror that is uniquely theirs. Yeah. And if you've seen their films, then you know what I'm talking about.
Outside of this movie, I would almost compare it to, like, Pi a little bit, but it's so much their movie and so much their version, plus it's a lot different in other ways, but someone being kind of obsessed with finding this answer.
Also, they always have gorgeous posters for their films.
They do. And even when they're not the main characters, they usually have, like, a buddy thing going on where two people talk. Also, Spring is where the only time it was actual romantic type relationship.
I think what I love about these guys, if you love a lot of people where you feel like there's true love behind the film, and I always say, I preach this on my channel, I don't know if I've done it in yours, but the love of your life isn't necessarily romantic. Yeah. Romantic love is not the end-all be-all. It's fine, We have it. But we don't have a lot of other things. So the love of your life might be your best friend. It might be your child. It might be your neighbor. It could be, it's no telling who the love of your life is going to be. And all love is valuable. Mm-hmm. And I love bromance directors. I fucking love it.
Yeah, they team up on everything.
I love, in music, I love Jack Black and Kyle Gass. Yeah. And in movies, I love Joe Lynch and Adam Green. And these guys too, like they've had a long time partnership. They work really well together, and they still, even though they found success in Marvel, they still share their responsibilities in the film. And this one, it's interesting, like in the Endless, they do both star. Aaron, who plays John, does the cinematography, and Levi wrote the script. So they know what roles they're going to take on. And obviously, these guys work really, really well together. They have a shared vision. But it's just really cool. I love these guys together. I love when they create together because they create really cool shit. Yeah. And it's one of those ones where you're just like, that's like the coolest friendship ever. And
like I said, they don't always play the main characters, but they write one-on-one so well that we had to double check the resolution wasn't them, because that felt like them so much because you could hear them in it. I don't know, this is nothing against a knock on them by any means, but I almost feel like sometimes they have all these conversations and they just get really high and then they find a way to make a good movie out of it.
But in this film, it fits so well because it feels like, have you guys ever even been around somebody who's high and they're like, what if we're all just ants? Or what if aliens, deposited us on this earth and we're just a science experiment? And then when you're in the moment and you're a little drunk, you're like, dude, you're really onto something. You're fucking smart. And then the next day you're like, that was utter nonsense. Right? That's what this movie is. How humans have this need. We have this need to feel like we're important. We're biological organisms like anything else. We don't wonder, does a spider feel like it's achieved its life's goal? Does a dog feel that? We don't think about that, but we do. Why are we here? Like, we're so narcissistic as a species that we think that we have some greater purpose for being here. You know, we attribute all these things to it to explain the why, when honestly sometimes I think maybe the simplest answer is the best. Not to say that there isn't a greater reason, there might be for all creatures, but we as humans have to find meaning. If we see two things, we don't usually think coincidence. If they tie together, we think something's going on here,
right? There's even a quote from the movie where he's like, is it more insane to worry about every little coincidence or more insane to ignore all of them? Like, because I don't know. Like, what is it? Like,
the other thing about this movie is it's a really cool character study. So you have these two characters, and Levi, you do feel bad for this guy. And I know a lot of guys like Levi, where they seem like essentially good people, but they've just had a hard run of it in life. Levi has no friends, no family. He's a bartender. Legal trouble, kind of like in Horrible Bosses. He's a registered sex offender
for peeing
in public. Life has really kicked Levi around, and the fact that it hasn't destroyed his spirit is really uplifting. But you know that the wrong person could come around and push Levi the wrong way.
Hold on, Christian Orr, what's up?
What's up? But then you have John, this other character who it's not clear at first, but he is kind of fucking evil. He's kind of American Psycho evil. And you know that honestly, right away when his first thought is, let's monetize a miracle. You know, but he is all about himself. And what's fun about this movie
and his
is
church.
As you watch this film, you realize you're actually watching the documentary of this film, because they're going to make this documentary, and that's what you're watching. So you cannot trust anything. As you watch it, they talk about how there's been multiple editors on this. They're doing reenactments. So I've even heard the Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead talk in an interview how these characters may not even be these characters. They may be actors that they hired for their reenactments. We can't trust anything in this movie, and that's what's kind of interesting about it.
Yeah, they don't trust each other halfway through the movie either, and for good reasons. There's a lot of trust issues in this movie, and I'm not going to give you any of the answers, obviously. You need to check it out for yourself, but you got to really pay attention to some of the details that they say, some of the details you see, some of the things, and some of it you'll disregard as okay, that wasn't real, but you got to really look through the haystack to find the needle in here.
And that's not to say that there's not cool things that happen. There's cool scientific things that happen, but you do need a question. Did it really happen? Or is this part of John's character trying to monetize that miracle, elaborating, exaggerating? And, at one point, someone does say, they ask them, do you think any of this really happened? And they're like, I think something did, but I can't say what. And you're supposed to question everything in this. They want you to question everything in this. So it's equal parts an interesting character study as it is an interesting study of conspiracy theorists and stuff. And it's if you like the idea of just getting really stoned and talking about the meaning of life, you're gonna fucking love this movie.
Yeah, that's what it is. Most of it. They're pacing wise, I felt there was a little bit of a lull at one point, but overall, I was satisfied with the ending that it gave me, so it was worth it.
What I love about this movie is its old school guerrilla filmmaking. I've always told, I've never been to New York. I've never been to the East Coast. I moved here from England. I know the Pacific Northwest, and I know England. But I don't know the East Coast. What I know, when I want to see New York, I watch a Henenlotter film.
Yeah.
Because it's guerrilla filmmaking at its finest. I feel like I'm seeing New York as it really is, really was in the 80s and 90s. And this movie does that. This is guerrilla filmmaking. These guys have money. And they're doing guerrilla filmmaking. You're seeing LA how it really is. And I feel like their characters are very authentic too. And so it's a really cool kind of slice of life movie in that effect.
Rick Sanchez says you have to be high to understand it. We weren't high. We were barely awake at 5 a.m. and I felt like I understood it.
You get a contact high watching it, though.
Yeah, I mean, I felt high watching it, but I certainly wasn't high to enjoy this or understand it.
Comparing this movie to other Lovecraftian films like Reanimator or Color Out of Space, those movies have really gorgeous visuals. The visuals in this, I mean, there's some cool camera angles, but it's supposed to look almost kind of boring, almost kind of mundane. Because it is. They're just two these guys filming things floating in their apartment. There's not crazy visual effects. There's not a lot of gore. It's not a horror movie. It's kind of a mystery. So for the visual aspect of it that you would get from Color Out of Space, or even, I guess, the big story payoffs you get in Reanimator, you're not going to get that here. But cerebrally, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, and there is a danger to this movie. Like, it might not be straight up horror, but they are in danger doing what they're doing, especially one of them. And you get a pretty satisfying payoff on that.
I also like the battle between these characters, because at one point they say, we're not friends.
Yeah.
And they aren't. And John is very manipulative. And when you're watching this, pay attention to how John's manipulating the situation. How, all of his ideas are right, but none of Levi's are. Yeah. It's interesting. It's really interesting. It also makes you think about, like, the stories we tell about history, History is told by the winners.
Right.
And so, when you read history books, you're like, is that really how it happened, or is that how the winners said it happened?
And for all the things going on, Levi's often wants to just leave. He just wants to leave town. So there's more than meets the eye, and that poster is a good thing going on there.
Put yourself in it. Like, you have to ask yourself, if you saw a miracle, if you saw the impossible, you saw aliens, you saw ghosts,
a crystal ashtray literally float up in front of you and fall down.
Something impossible. Is it enough for you to experience a miracle, or would you need to monetize it? Do you need credit for it?
Yeah.
Do you need to be credited for seeing it? Or is it just enough for you to see it?
I think at one point, they say how, like, one of them says that we weren't in this for the fame and stuff, and, like, well, why did you play yourself in the reenactments?
Yeah.
But then again, maybe then it got reenacted again, so not 100% sure if it is actually them in there, but
so
exactly, they get questioned on a lot of their things.
You watch this movie for the same reason that you do a puzzle. And the difference is that this puzzle is not a square, rectangle, or any normal shape. It's going to be a weird shape at the end. Oh, yeah. And you may not get that satisfaction of having completed it, because I don't know if you ever complete this puzzle. But that idea of chasing a mystery, solving a mystery, gathering the clues, thinking about this is a fun movie to talk about with your friends and stuff, like, what does it all mean? Mm-hmm. In a lot of ways, like talking about what life all means. It's something you can have hours and hours of conversation about. However, if you need a linear storyline, if you need a lot of things to happen, this is a lot of dialogue, and it's kind of a slow burn.
Yeah, it's a bit of a slow burn. Really watching science fiction called The Third Body Problem, based on the book. Check that out. Yeah, I recommend this to anybody who's a fan of their other movies. It's certainly not their worst, and I think their old movies are all pretty much on par with each other. We like Spring the best, but I don't think any of them are really any farther down much than the other ones. They're all pretty much what they are.
Yeah, there's not a lot of other things I can compare their stuff to. There's one movie called The Alchemist Cookbook. It's kind of, just very cerebral stuff, but Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson, if you've seen their movies, this is more of the same. There's a spectrum with Justin and Aaron. Very, very cerebral, and then very story. Mm-hmm. I would say the most story they've ever done is Spring, where it doesn't I personally, for me, I like, if you can take the cerebralness out of it, if you can take the themes and the metaphors out of it, and you still have a good story. Things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and stuff, you don't need to understand what they're going for to enjoy it.
Plus, that has a very clear idea of what the monster and stuff is in Spring.
Yeah. That's Spring. On the other hand, where it's not a clear narrative, you try to tell your friend what happens in the movie, and it's like, well, it's a lot of guys talking. Very cerebral. This is their most cerebral one yet. If you're trying to explain what happens in the plot, it almost seems like not a lot happens. But there is a lot to think about. There is a lot to talk about.
Though, compared to Resolution, I felt like I got more visual, like, payoffs in this one. So I liked that. Like, stuff happens pretty early on, stuff does happen in the middle, and something gives me a pretty satisfying ending.
And I really feel like this Lovecraftian world they've created, it exists in all of them. There's this idea of the old ones in all of them, and I can see that here
It's
too.
the whole universe.
And yeah, this is absolutely fitting in that universe where you're like, oh, I think I know what's going on here. The more of their movies you watch, the more I think you understand the universe that they're in.
Thank you, Rapper Whale. We're trying. We don't want to we want you to actually check this one out. I am going to say see it, especially if you're a big fan of them, or if you like conspiracy theories, or if you like, New Age crystals. If you're a big fan of those too.
If you're somebody who really likes to pontificate, I'm using big 50 Cent words like that because this is a 50 Cent movie. But if you really want to talk about the meaning of life, what does it all mean? Why are we here? And also, if you just want to maybe poke a little fun at conspiracy theorists, where you're just like, I feel like you've got a grain of maybe some truth in there that you were onto something, but then you went way too far into that rabbit hole, and now you're just turning up rabbit shit. If either of those things interest you, this is absolutely going to resonate with you. Now, I'm going to say for me personally, I do recommend this. It's way too ambitious and it's way too smart for me to not recommend it. Of their movies, though, I rank this kind of lower like I did with Resolution. Resolution was really cool, and then it's kind of like, almost like Cabin in the Woods, like, what are our stories about? Are we appeasing some old god? Or are we telling a story? That's what Resolution was about. This one's about conspiracy theorists and kind of, what we do when we're confronted with the impossible.
Some people are very desperate to make meaning of it all and make everything fit, that they will rearrange everything and look at it every angle until it all fits. When in reality, it doesn't all fit.
Sorry, Rich, I should have clarified. I mean, like, when they talk about writing, they say don't use a 50-cent word when a 10-cent word will do. These movies are all 50-cent words.
Yeah.
They really want you to scratch your heads a bit. Hey, May Ann's here. What's up? She was came and visited me on my last fight night with Slasher and Suits.
50 cent worth is like Maleficent, where like the 10 cent word is evil. It just means like it's a little easier, I guess.
So these are big cerebral head scratcher type films,
mind blowers.
And I think these are really fun to watch with somebody else. I think you're gonna enjoy it more watching it with somebody else and then talking about it afterwards. Now, like I said, this is one of their more cerebral works. So if you love Resolution, this might be your favorite one yet.
Yeah, and maybe
if Resolution is your favorite so far, this is your new favorite, I think.
I think mostly because they made this like during the pandemic, and that's why it really kind of went to roots for them, because there can't be a whole lot of people on camera.
It's also kind of like the dangers of when you have too much time to overthink something. Like during the pandemic, a lot of us were in lockdown. A lot of us were stuck in our house in the same room all day, every day, and you have too much time to think. And we are very intelligent animals, but sometimes we're too intelligent for our own good and we overthink things.
Yeah. We see things that we want to see. We we gaslight ourselves in a sense.
Yeah.
We rewrite what we saw, and we reenact it the way we wanted to see it, Like, sometimes people can lie to themselves even.
So it's really smart. For me, I prefer when I like movies where if I can take all the smart stuff out and it still works as a story.
Yeah.
Like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, it can be about the horrors of growing up, but it can also just be a girl fighting vampires. It works in both ways. Get Out, it can be a cool body snatcher thing, but it can also be a real good commentary on liberal racism. So I prefer that. So Spring is still my steadfast favorite of theirs, but this is definitely one to recommend. If Resolution is your favorite, you just found your new favorite. Check it out for sure.
Yeah. Give it a little see it. Boom. And that's my recommendations for tonight.
I'm really happy because, I'm messing up all my screens. Sandy, who is a part of the B-Movie Coven over on my channel, says, enjoy and respect both your opinions, but I just watched Sick and I loved it. I was totally engaged from the beginning and it was fun, tension-filled, and exciting. Don't understand the hate. Honestly, most people, I think, love Sick. And that's why I always tell you guys, like, form your own opinion. I think essentially, if you hear the description for a movie, or there's a director you love, or there's actors you love, and you're intrigued, don't let people stop you from seeing it. Because most of the time, I'm the one who's like, nah, that was good, dude. Unfortunately, Sick, I hate it because I feel like it's a party, and everyone's having a good time, and I'm sitting outside and I can't get in the door. Sick was one I didn't enjoy, but that doesn't mean that I'm right. It's very well made. Very well made.
We respect anybody who likes a horror movie,
And
even if it's a horror movie that we don't particularly like.
I'm mostly just sad that I didn't have as much fun as you did.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you had a good time, and I'm glad it's doing well. I'm always happy when horror does well.
And we try to say what we did like about it, like those action scenes and those kills. Really good. Some long shots there. Wasn't cut to shit.
Outside of this guy, horror is my best friend, and I'm always happy when horror is succeeding, and Sick is succeeding. So even though I didn't enjoy it, I want you to enjoy it, and hopefully we were able to communicate that when we did that review.
Man asks this question: is this movie scary? I thought about watching the other night, but I didn't pull the trigger. Okay,
It's not.
not usually. I mean, it depends. Some people they hear.
This isn't even horror.
Well, no, but hear me out. Sci-fi can get those neck hairs going when you like
Neck
start.
hairs?
Yeah, you can feel the neck hairs rise up because you start thinking about like, whoa, could that be real? Like, people do that. Like, that's why they watch those ghost hunter shows, and that's why they watch the people out there chasing aliens and stuff. And I think there's some parts about this that will like kind of creep you out, but it's more suspenseful and it's like more sci-fi than it is straight up horror. There is danger to this movie. Like, these people are in danger in this film. But
And it's funny because when you watch movies, you get really used to kind of being spoiled.
yeah.
I've seen things in movies that are beyond impossible. I've seen people be ripped apart, and so you get a little spoiled, so to speak. And in this movie, it kind of makes you think about, like, what if you saw a simple miracle that there almost could be a scientific explanation for, like seeing something floating, like this beer bottle floating. Maybe there's something to do with the gravity in this room. Maybe there's a polarity or something I don't understand because I'm not a science person. I'm a horror person. But it's a miracle. And even though I've seen so much crazier stuff in movies, this movie feels real in an authentic way where you have to think, if I saw that, how would I react?
See, Afro Whale says aliens freak me out. Really just the unknown. Exactly. This movie is very much the unknown. Like,
oh yeah, we don't know if it's aliens, ghosts, anything. It is the unknown, and I think that's even scarier than putting a name on it.
Exactly. So when people ask me if this is scary, I want to straight up say, well, it depends what scares you. Like, if a slasher movie scares you, not gonna be like that. But some people get chilled watching unsolved mysteries. Even that music kind of gets my my goosebumps going. So if in that sense, yes.
But if you need answers, this movie's going to frustrate you.
Yeah.
I think there's something scary about never truly knowing. What if you saw something impossible?
Right.
Something as simple as something floating in your room, and you never know. Is my house haunted? Mm-hmm. Was it aliens? Was it something scientific that I don't understand?
Is there a gas leak? Is there radiation? Is there all kinds of crazy stuff?
Am I hallucinating?
Is there something in the dirt? Anyways, so yeah, it depends on what scares you. I would say this movie is freaky, but it's not like a body count. It's not gory. It's not like ultra violent. There is death. There is like danger, but it's also just the unknown.
And I think the scariest part of this is sometimes that human nature to monetize things, Like, they make a good point. Everyone has cell phones and stuff now, so if there was really ghosts and aliens, wouldn't we have some proof?
Yeah.
One, we're too skeptical, I think, to believe proof.
Exactly.
And two, maybe not all of us, maybe if we truly saw something, maybe not all of us would have to film it. Maybe some of us would just be okay with it.
There's tons of videos out there that have captured something, but when you see it, do you really believe?
It's also really hard. Like, they show in this movie, like, you have to have all your camera equipment fucking ready all the time. What if it was a one-time thing? You might be screwed.
What if the phenomenon messes up electricity, therefore your cameras and stuff are useless?
But yeah, it's not only a question about miracles, it's a question about how we would react to a miracle.
Yeah.
To something impossible.
Their reaction to it is more the movie than what it actually is. I like to call the unexplained universe does mysterious things. That's what I believe. Yep. There's a lot of things that don't have answers yet.
And I think, honestly, sometimes I guess the right answer or the best answer is to just accept that we're animals like any other animal, and there are things in this world we're never going to understand.
Yeah.
But that's not what happens with John in this movie.
And if you do partake, I would do that right after the movie.
Yeah, right after with a buddy. I think this is a movie you watch with one of your friends who loves to dissect and analyze the themes in movies. You're going to have the best time ever. That buddy you stay up late with getting stoned, talking about like the meaning of life. That's who you watch this movie with.
What's the name of that channel your mom's really into with the goldfish?
I don't know. It is funny.
There's that guy, and he does all these like conspiracy theories, and he's got a little talking goldfish next to him. Mummy B Movie loves him. Yeah, if you're into that kind of stuff, this movie's for you.
Man has a very good question. How's the acting? So, Man, what's really cool about this, and what I think you might enjoy, is Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead are typically behind the camera. Justin wrote the movie, and Aaron did the cinematography, so it's very homegrown. And with that, you would think, because they're not actors first and foremost, that it wouldn't be good, but this feels natural. This feels like two regular guys. One, they look like regular guys. They don't even look like themselves. I barely recognize them because I've seen them in other movies like The Endless.
Yeah, that one, they're the main characters.
A lot of found footage movies, people's hair is just a little too perfect. They're a little too perfect. They're a little too coiffed. These feel like a couple guys living in an apartment in L.A. Yeah, that's what this feels like.
They look broke-ass, too. Like,
humor hits. Humor's all about timing.
One's a little more about appearances. The other one is not. And I know people that are just like both of them. But deep down, they're both broken kind of financially and on like in the inside for different reasons. But they come off as very real people.
I believe them, and that's the thing. I've watched even people who acting is their first and only job, and a lot of times I get pulled out of the story because I feel like I can almost see the director telling them how to, find their motivation. You know what I mean? And in this movie, I got sucked in. I believed these characters, and I've seen these guys in other things. I know this is not who they are.
Yeah.
Aaron Moorhead is not an evil person.
No.
But he's not a narcissistic person. I have hiccups. But in this movie, I believe that they were these characters.
Yeah.
It feels real.
This is like their second movie where they're the main characters. They usually play smaller parts. But even in the other movies, the dialogue always sounds like the two of them. And I think that's probably why I have no hard time believing it's them, because their dialogue's always them. It's their two characters. I don't know what their range is outside of, like, if somebody else wrote a movie, I don't know what their acting would be. But in this movie, it feels very natural.
There's also a lot of symbolism with as much humor as there is in this movie. You may not, it's easy to question when something's funny that it's not as smart as it is. But I think it's one, I haven't rewatched it, but I feel like you can rewatch it and catch a lot of symbolism, like the Russian doll wind chime and stuff. And the way they're using sound, the way it's edited, there's a lot to dissect here. There's a lot. And if you love their movies, this is a puzzle. If you like those like Hunted Killer boxes that people subscribe to, this is a puzzle. And you can watch it over and over again and find new things and really enjoy and dissect this.
I only watched it once, but there's a lot of things I said early on that made a lot of sense when I got done watching it. There was one thing that was pretty early on, and I went, that's how it's going to end. And I was kind of right. There was a lot more to it. But but
do you really know?
Exactly.
Or are you just?
I knew that it was going to come back.
Again, it's the stories told by the victors.
Exactly. I knew it was going to come back at the end of the movie, and that's what I meant.
Like Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead said on Twitter, they're like, you have to think about this. This is the documentary. Are these even the real people, or were these actors hired for it? Like there's a lot to second guess.
Exactly.
They want you to trust yourself in this. Don't trust the movie.
Right. But pay attention to the movie because it'll pay off.
Watch the movie for clues, but make your own conclusion.
Exactly.
I felt way high now. So like I said, for me, it's not their best, but I'm not super certain. But what I like about them, though, is I've seen a lot of other filmmakers in their kind of genre, a very cerebral horror. And a lot of times what turns me off is I really hate, there's two things that turn me off a movie more than anything. If it's soulless and made by money people, and if it's pretentious. Right. I hate pretentious movies. I will take your cheesy gore puppet movie over a pretentious film any day. And I hate it like After Midnight, which everyone else loved. I hate movies that I think are pretentious, where the filmmakers think that they are smarter than the audience. I hate that. These guys have never done that.
Yeah.
I never feel like they're talking down to me. I never feel like they think that they're smarter than me. I feel like they're challenging me to think about things in a different way and that they're doing it effectively.
And there's a couple other directors that are similar but come off pretentious. And that's just particular taste. Maybe some people feel that way about them. They do elevate in a sense, like you said, they use 50-cent words and that kind of stuff. They talk, but they even kind of like poke fun at their own ideas. I don't feel like they act like they're above anybody in their movies.
I feel like you could have a theory about this movie, meet them at a convention, tell them, and they'd be like, oh, that's cool. They wouldn't be like, oh, well, you just didn't get it, sweetheart. Yeah. They are not, these men are not pretentious.
From what?
And I am uber critical of pretension, even a little bit, you know. I think I read pretension in movies where there's not necessarily pretension. I really don't like things that are trying too hard to be highbrow. And so as picky as I am about things like that, I'm recommending this movie and I'm saying it's really good.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Men didn't work for me. I hated After Midnight. I hate motivational growth. And I know these are well-loved films, but to me, those are films that I felt were a little pretentious, a little talking down to me. So if I'm uber sensitive to it and I'm telling you this film is not pretentious, I don't know. Hopefully you trust me.
Yeah. I mean, if you like those movies, I still think you'd like this movie.
Yeah.
They do, like, want you to question stuff. Like I said, if you like, what's his name? Daryl Aronofsky's old stuff, where he has people...
Aronofsky?
Yeah, Aronofsky. It's kind of like that. They have their own flavor, but, you know, they have similar themes of obsession and stuff like that. So...
But it does it with fun.
Exactly.
Like, I feel like they're constantly reminding you with the humor, like, hey, we're not saying we have it figured out. We just want you to question it. We're questioning it, and we don't want to... I feel like I'm getting the intention from them is... We're questioning this all the time, and we want you to question it, or at least we want to commiserate with you and be like, hey, have you guys thought about this too? I feel like they're not trying to have like a TED Talk here where they're teaching us. They're having a conversation with us.
Yeah. I mean, one of them talks down to the other one, but the movie never feels talks down to us. I feel like the movie has all these questions, but these people don't have the answers. They're like just trying to figure it out.
Afro Wales, the endless punch they're taking with me. I watch anything they put out, quality for the most part.
Yeah.
And they are also so good at working within the constraints of their budget.
Yeah.
Endless, they had that rope trick, which they knew they could do really well, and it was really cool. But they never try to do anything that's beyond what they can afford to do well.
Yeah.
I think the most ambitious is Spring, and the effects in that are incredible.
Yeah, and I think the Endless and Spring had bigger budgets. This one is back to basics in a sense because of the pandemic, but there's still special effects, and they look good.
For their bigger budget movies, or at least movies that look bigger. My highest recommendation is for Spring. I love it. Not only is it the best, probably romantic horror film I've ever seen, it challenged me. It made me think about things in new ways. It was surprising. I love Spring so much. Yeah. I love The Endless, but I would probably place this about third on the list of their movies that I enjoy.
Yeah. But like I said, even their lower ones aren't far down. They're all pretty close, so.
Yeah, you know what I mean, Mayanne, where Men was gorgeous in the cinematography, the music was incredible, the acting was good, but for some reason the story just wasn't quite there and the themes didn't connect. At least that's what I got from Men. I was like, wow, production-wise, this is 5 stars, but the story and the themes are kind of missing for me.
Oh.
These guys know what to do with their story and themes.
And they made, like, what, in a sense, would be kind of a dull location, just, run-down little, like, apartment, and they made it amazing. Where in Men, that's the one thing I'm jealous of, the location. I loved that the best about Men. The locations, it was like, oh, man, they have some great places to film here. But they made things that I wouldn't be jealous of otherwise, but they made a great movie regardless. But
what I love about it, like, I live in the Pacific Northwest, and something with the whole Pacific coast that we deal with is fires.
Right.
Summer's fire season. There's always a wildfire. You always smell smoke. Once the weeds turn brown, and they say that in this movie, there's a fire. And
we have that problem here too.
You can tell when someone really lives there. And
also,
you know these men, this is their real apartment. They really do live in LA.
Yeah.
They know LA. The planes going overhead, the things that are kind of strange and magical, and also the things that are really irritating and mundane. And I genuinely, felt like I got a peek at LA that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Yeah. But one thing we do share with LA is those magic coyotes.
Yes,
They're all
even
around
that.
Here. You gotta like make sure a cat's not outside. because they're
But
out
that's
there.
what's cool about it, you know? Like, having visited LA and stuff, I feel like they gave me a peek at LA that I couldn't even get from visiting there. That they understand LA in a way that only someone who's lived there for a long time does.
They know what's in the dirt.
Yes.
In LA. All right. So that's pretty much what we have to say. Check it out. Cut.
Cut!
Thanks for watching.